It's May the 4th, Star Wars Day, and we have a big film coming out later this month with The Mandalorian and Grogu. But Star Wars is a franchise that doesn't need a cinema release to be everywhere. Today, we're taking a look at the history of Star Wars in licensing. I'm David Bourne, and this is Born to License. Now, I want to take you back, not to a galaxy far, far away, but to Hollywood 1977, because what happened in a boardroom that year is arguably one of the most important moments in the history of licensing, and I'd argue it changed our entire industry. George Lucas had just made Star Wars. 20th Century Fox had greenlit it, but they weren't exactly betting the house on it. In negotiating his deal, Lucas made a move that most people in the room thought was really strange. He agreed to cut his director's fee from $500,000 down to $150,000 in exchange for sequel rights and merchandising rights. Fox, of course, said yes. Why wouldn't they? Nobody thought merchandise from a space movie was worth that much. That was, to put it mildly, a miscalculation. Star Wars opened in May 1977 and became the highest grossing film of all time at that point. And then the toys started selling. Kenner, a relatively small toy company that had licensed the rights, reportedly just for $100,000, was completely unprepared for what came next. They couldn't manufacture the figures fast enough for Christmas 1977, so they did something that had never really been done before. They sold an empty box. The early bird certificate package, they called it, essentially an IOU, a cardboard envelope with a membership card, some stickers, a display stand with no figures to put on it, and a certificate you could mail in to receive 4 figures once they were ready. Some toy store owners refused to stock it. "We sell toys," they said, not promises. But parents bought it anyway, because the demand for Star Wars was that overwhelming. In early 1978, those 4 figures, Luke, Leia, R2-D2, and Chewbacca, arrived in the post. Kenner sold 500,000 of those certificate packages. By the end of 1978, Star Wars toys had generated $100 million in revenue, all from a $100,000 advance. It's been reported that the royalty rate was 5%, which is a lot lower than most license agreements these days. Now, that's the power of IP, $100 million in revenue. Unbelievable. Now, here's what's most fascinating from a licensing perspective. George Lucas hadn't actually locked up all the merchandising rights from day one. The initial deal included a revenue split with Fox, but when it came time to negotiate for The Empire Strikes Back, Lucas held all the cards. He offered Fox distribution rights for 7 years and asked for the merchandising rights back. Fox wanted the sequel so badly they said yes. From that point on, George Lucas owned it all. He used that control to build an empire. Comics, clothing, games, novels, all managed through his entity, Lucasfilm. By the early 1980s, merchandise was generating more revenue than the films themselves. Today, it's estimated that licensed Star Wars product has generated over $30 billion in retail sales, which is an unbelievable figure. In 2012, Lucas sold Lucasfilm, and with it the entire Star Wars franchise, to who else but the Walt Disney Company for $4.05 billion, half in cash, half in Disney stock. It remains one of the most significant IP acquisitions in history. Now, let me tell you something I find genuinely fascinating, and it connects directly to what's happening right now in May 2026 with The Mandalorian and Grogu hitting cinemas later this month. Star Wars has this rare quality that almost no other franchise has. Kids wear Star Wars without knowing what Star Wars is. I've seen it firsthand. Parents buy their toddler a Grogu backpack. The kid has no idea who Grogu is. They haven't even seen the show or the movie, but they love it. They've absorbed it through culture. That is Evergreen licensing at its most powerful, when a brand transcends the screen and becomes part of the fabric of childhood itself. And that's exactly why our client, Hippo Blue, got into it, licensing the Star Wars property. Hippo Blue makes personalized children's products, backpacks, bento boxes, drink bottles, stickers, and their Star Wars range launched on May the 4th last year, so a year ago today. Darth Vader's silhouette, lightsabers personalized with your child's name. It's a brilliant example of what licensing can do when a licensee truly understands their customer. But Hippo Blue wasn't going to leave out adult Star Wars fans. They also launched Sip in Style box sets, each featuring a personalized drink bottle and coffee cup. Customers could choose either the dark side set, which featured Darth Vader, or the light side set, which featured R2-D2. I'm curious, do you think you're more on the dark side or the light side? Now, before I wrap up, I have to mention one of my all-time favorite Star Wars licensing moments that had nothing to do with a toy: the 2011 Volkswagen Super Bowl ad called The Force. A little kid in a Darth Vader costume wandering around a house trying to use the Force on the washing machine. The dog, his sister's doll, nothing works. Then he walks up to his dad's Volkswagen in the driveway, raises his hands, and then the car starts. His face, pure astonishment. But what he didn't know is that Dad had used the remote start from inside the house. It is absolutely perfect, but here's why I always bring this up in a licensing context. Volkswagen released that ad on YouTube days before the Super Bowl. At the time, that was unheard of. You held your Super Bowl ad until game day. That was the conventional wisdom. Volkswagen bet that ad was good enough to go viral. It had 8 million views before it even aired on television. And by the Monday after the game, 15 million views. That was a lot of views on YouTube back then. It is still considered one of the most shared TV commercials ever made, and it only happened because Star Wars is such a well-known, popular brand. So huge that it changed how advertising works. So on this May the 4th, as The Mandalorian and Grogu arrives in cinemas and parents elsewhere find themselves buying merch for kids who may not be able to name a single character, not to mention merch for themselves too, remember this: a filmmaker took a pay cut in 1977 and changed the entire trajectory of the licensing industry. George Lucas taught us the value of IP and how it can translate onto products to service fandom and expand the franchise into retail. That's all for today. May the Force be with you. I'm David Bourne, and this is Born to License.